Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and we are welcome to the Shabbat of this morning, and we give the glory to God, the God of our fathers. We thank our God for giving us the opportunity to be able to start the Torah anew. Today we are starting from the book of Bereshit, chapter 1, from verse 1. You see, not long ago we finished the entire Torah, and now we are restarting back again because the Torah cannot be broken. It doesn't have, it's a chain reaction. It continues. You cannot just break and say, okay, let's relax again. No. We continue, okay? So there is no any relaxation. This morning, just to give a little thought. When we were coming, so me and my wife were discussing. I said, is there any rest? It's actually, a man has no rest. From the day he was born to the day he's going to die. No rest. Because, okay, by the time you say, okay, I'm now at my age of retirement, I did everything perfect, everything is good, everything is great, right? Then your children, they grow up, they get married, right? And they have children. And again, they bring the grandchildren to you again. Then you have to continue to, right? It is happiness, it's a joy, right? For you to take care of your grandchildren, and maybe you still have your own parent to take care of. So the work continues, it continues and continues and continues. So therefore, the Torah, we cannot break the Torah. The Torah has to continue and continue. So the parasha of this morning is known as Parasha Bereshit, which means the beginning, the starting of the parasha, beginning. All right, and I subtitle it Balancing in Creation. Remember that the creation is balanced. I want us to understand that principle. Everything that God created is balanced. He said, and all things I made is very, very good. Even though darkness is good, the light is good, everything is good. The issue here is the perspective of a man. From what angle are you looking at it from? On what angle? That I'm saying, what is your perspective? What is your angle? From what side are you looking at the matter from? Then that will determine if it's good or not. Right? But remember, all things that God created is very, very good. So here we are again, all the way back around to Tohu Vabohu, which means darkness and void. We start over with a new circle of the Torah. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'haaretz. Right? In the beginning of God creating, God created the heavens and the earth. But wait, weren't we just about to enter the promised land? Remember, last week or 2 weeks ago, we were about to do what? To enter the promised land. And now, we start again. Remember that means that in the book of Deuteronomy, the last chapter of Deuteronomy, that the Israelites were about to enter the promised land. And now we are starting the Torah all over again. Is a great story. Really, it is a great story. One of the best that humanity has ever seen. From nothingness, God creates everything with vivid color, with wide diversity. In just 6 days, God created all that you can see, both in the heavens and on earth, than things that you do not see. From darkness and void, God created the world into being and create all the plants, the flowers, the lights in the sky, the stars, the animals, and the people. And then God rests, even showing us how to do that. You see, is a great story. The story, the best that humanity has ever seen. This story of the creation of the entire universe, or I can say the entire multiverse, because I can't say it's just a universe. A universe means only one, and the universe is not just one. We have levels of them, right? He created all of them By what? By his word. God did not say, okay, let me go and gather this, and combine it together to make one thing. No. What man does is will continue to create from what God has created. There's nothing that man formed by himself. No. Whatever we do, we take it from what it is already been there. We take it and we combine it together to form something new. But in the case of God, it wasn't like that. There was nothing. He just speak, and everything came to pass. God uses words to create. And in a parallel form, God's creation, Adam, uses words to name and identify each of these creations. A universe came into existence, and each thing has a name so that we can address it. Remember that when God creates, God used a word to create. Right? And the same word Adam used to name all the animals. Look at this. There is a famous word that the magicians always use. They call it abracadabra. That's a famous word, right? The famous word of all the magicians in the world. They say abracadabra, or abracadabra. Voila! Abracadabra, voila! Right? It's a famous word. And who can tell me from which word is this? This word is Aramaic. It's an Aramaic word. Aramaic, the language that the people of Israel spoke during the time of Yeshua. That's from there. It's not Hebrew, but it's Aramaic. It's an Aramaic word. And what does it mean? What is the meaning of this? The meaning of abracadabra means I create as I speak. That's what it means. I create as I speak. So this is what the magician said, right? Or this is what the magician is saying every time that they do what? That they make magic, right? So look at what Adam is doing too. Adam is what is copying his father. Who is his father? God is his father. Adam, the son of God, right? So God speak. Adam, yeah, this is fantastic. They can speak and everything become, and God call all the animals and make the animal to pass before Adam. And God told Adam, begin to give them names. And Adam used what? The word. Adam speak and begin to give them name one by one. And God said, okay, begin to give name to all the creation. Adam begin to name all the stars. Begin to give them name one by one. The same thing we do today because we are the descendant of Adam. You have a child, you give your child a name. It's by word, you speak. And that name stick to that child. We make a chair, we give it, chair, right? And we give it a name. Everything that we make a car, we bring it, this is a motor vehicle, this is a car, right? We give names to things, right? To be able to do what is the purpose of giving name? Is to do what? Is for identification purposes, to identify, to separate. To go, okay, this is a car, this is a chair, this is a camera, this is a this and that. For identification purposes, that's why we give names. So this is what I am saying, that and this word is what the magician, they use it to do what? To tell people that I speak, I create as I speak. The holiday of Simchat Torah marks the reset of the cycle of the Torah's portions. The book of Deuteronomy or the book of Devarim conclude, and the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, begin anew. This year though, because Simchat Torah ended on Wednesday, right? Remember? This year we have to rush due to very few days that we have between Simchat Torah and the Torah, that is the Shabbat of today. The storyline in Bereshit is confusing and difficult for us to reconcile with our rational understanding of the universe. The Torah is not meant, however, to be a science or history book. It is meant to be a guide for navigating our course in this world. I repeat myself again. The Torah is not meant to be a science book, nor a storybook. It is meant to be a guide to navigate our path in this world. What is the meaning of the word? The Torah. Torah means guidance. That's what it means. The word Torah means guidance. The Torah that we read is not meant to be a storybook. Yeah, there's a lot of story there, right? But it's not meant to be just a storybook that you open and you read to the children before they go to bed. It is more than that. It's more complex and it's more deeper than that. Sometimes we cannot even understand it with our rational mind. We try to rationalize it with our human mind, but sometimes we find it extremely difficult to be able to rationalize using our human mind. So therefore, in this world, the world is filled with danger. The world is filled with hope. The world is filled with serpents, with scorpions. The world is filled with dangerous things. So therefore, the Torah is made to be a guidance for us, to guide us so that we can be able to escape all these dangers that exist or that are existing in the world. So the Torah is a guidance to those people that take hold of it. In the narrative of the creation of Adam and Eve, we found that the episode is presented first as an introductory sketch and then repeated with the details and dimension necessary to foster an understanding of what might have taken place 5,782 years ago. The first account of creation states, "So God made man in his image, in the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them." Genesis chapter 1 verse 22. Verse 27, I'm sorry. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27. What does it mean that he created him in the singular if it is then goes on to suggest that he created them male and female? Which is which? It's confusing, right? God said that he created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. But initially he created him, a singular. And now he said he created them. So which one is which one? Where are we going to stand? Him or them? Which one? We have to be clear. It's confusing. Let's see. It seems that originally man was a composite of a male and a female. To this man, it further states that God blessed them and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, the bird of the sky, and every living thing that move on the earth." Genesis chapter 1 verse 28. Remember, this man, I use the word this man. This man is different from Adam, right? Because when God said, "And God created them, male and female," he said, in the image of God, he created who? He created man. He said, "Let us create man." He didn't say, "Let us create Adam." I mean, the meaning of man meaning Adam. That what it means. But he said, "Let us create man in our image." Man meaning Adam. Or sometimes you can use it as the Adama. Adama is also like the like cow. So you can use the word has different meaning if you add some letters into it. But this is what God is saying. Let us create Adam let us create man in our image, right? So in the image of God, he created what? He created man. So is this man that God created, is it different from Adam? The first one. Because if you go to chapter 2, he now gives us a lot of explanation. The Torah elaborate completely more, right, in chapter 2. But in chapter 1, it's a kind of a complete summary right? That man was made a composite man. That is, he's a man and he's a woman at the same time. It's like, for example, they call it in science, they call it hermaphrodites. Hermaphrodites are animals that are male and female at the same time. Something like that, you know? Something like that. That's how God created man initially. Adam, the man, the female and the male and the female. Even though today we can still have that, that part in us. In every man, there's a woman. In every woman, there's a man. See, we see science confirm that. Okay? It seems that Adam and Eve together were told that they will rule over all the entire creations. In the second chapter, we find a detailed account of their creation and their separation. In verse 18, it states, Adonai God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helpmate corresponding to him." The text then describes the naming of all the animals and then return to the story of the surgical process of removing a side of Adam to create Eve. What was so bad? The question is, what was so bad about Adam being alone? Remember, God said in chapter 2, he gives us a complete detailed explanation of it. And the Lord God said that it is not good for the man to be alone. It is not good for the man to be alone. So was the man alone? If we look at it, yes, because it was two persons in one body. It's the male and the female together in that body. So he's single. He's alone. And the Lord God said, no. This is not good. You see, it is not Adam that went to God and said, God, I need somebody. Adam did not complain, right? He did not say, God, I need another person to help me out. But God himself saw that it is not good for the man to be alone, that he needs an assistant. He needs a help. He needs somebody that he can communion with. He needs somebody that he can have a relationship with, right? So, the question now is, what is bad in being alone? Because we can see in this world that many people say, oh, I want to be alone. I want to be alone. I want to stay on my own. Hey, I want to be single for the rest of my life. Is it right? The Torah is telling us it's not right. It's not good. It's not good for the man to be alone. When I use the word man, I include the woman too. It's not good for the woman to be alone. It's not good for the man to be alone. None of us is good to be alone. We have that. We are social animals. Okay? Man is a social being. He needs a relationship. You cannot just stay like that, like an island, alone on my own. No. You need an interaction. You need communication. You need to talk. You need to be loved. He has to love to be loved. So now the question is it what is bad about somebody be alone? Let's see. After all, it was a fusion of both masculine and female entity all bound up in one. Why the need of this separation? Further, one can ask why the interruption with the naming of the animals in the story, because the story cut short and it goes into the naming of the animals, right? And then later on it came back again to the surgical operation that God did to remove Eve from Adam. So our stages, our classic commentary have multiple explanations that answer some of these questions. Some of the more contemporary Musa scholars suggest that what was not good about man being alone was that he had no opportunity to be a giver. Exact man. That is it. Why was it not good for a man to be alone? Because man has no opportunity to be a giver. Remember, his father is what? His father is God. And God is what? God is a giver. Man has to emulate his father. A child emulates their parents. Every children. They say, that's why they say the word that you speak to your children, it goes here, it comes out here. They don't listen. It goes here and come out. But what they see is what they copy. It magnetizes their brain. Their brain is attracted to it. Boom. And they begin to do exactly what they see. Because the mama say one thing or the papa say one thing, the papa and the mama, they do another thing. The child will never hear what the child will do exactly what the papa and the mama is doing. That is it. And what is happening here? Adam saw his father, God, that God is a giver. The glory, the energy, that right? The ray of power, the ray of energy that passed through the spiritual world to the physical world. Adam saw that God always gives. God always gives. And because love is what? Love is giving. But in the 21st century, in the mind of the westernizer, the westernized mind, they think love is to take. Take. To them, that is love. If you don't give me, you don't love me. Oh, I need a brand new BMW. And the man said, honey, I don't have the money. Oh, you don't love me. What does that have to do with love? Oh, honey, I want to get a brand new house. This house, I love it. And the man said, I don't have the money now. Oh, you don't love me. You have another girlfriend, eh? You see, what does that have to do with love? Because in our mind, we think love is only to take. No. Actually, love is not to take. Love is to give. When you love somebody, you give. And when you give, it's replenished. It's replenished. It's replenished. It's replenished. That is what love is. So, because Adam has no opportunity to be a giver, Adam has no opportunity to give, and God said, oh, no, this is not good. I'm going to make him a helper through which he can show what? That he is a giver. Alright, so let's continue from what our sages is giving us. The account of naming the animals suggests that Adam was trying to find opportunity to give to other creatures, but that the giving was not as satisfying an experience. You see, when the Torah caught into the naming of the animal, our sages said that since Adam wants to be like his father, he wants to be a giver. So God said, okay, go and name all the animals. So he begins to name them. He's giving, because as he named, he's giving. He's giving himself. He's giving. What to him is not a good. It's not so satisfying. He needs something more tangible. Right? Because Adam knows, or Adam understands all the things that God is doing. Wow! Look at the way God is giving life. How God is giving everything He has for the spiritual world and for the physical world, for all this world, for all this multiverse. You see, God is giving wow, this is great. But giving this is too small. I need something tangible, something that is, that I can feel. Not just name it. I need something more. Okay? Technically, what might be going on in his mind, okay? So, ironically, when Adam and Eve were still fused together as one, they were told to be master over all the creatures. Even when man was put in a position to give to other beings, it was still considered not good enough. Man needed to have a peer to whom to give. By creating Eve, they each could give to one another in a meaningful way. When there is an imbalance in power, the giving often does not achieve the greatest good. Okay? Remember, in creation, everything is balanced. That's the title. Balancing in the creation. Everything is balanced. When the giving is only one-sided, right? You only give and give and give, and your second or your partner or your other part refuse to give, then there's a problem because it's imbalance. When the man give, the woman give. When the woman give, the man give. Is balance. Remember, the Torah said, and he said that they should be the leader, they should be the one controlling the whole world. How come now the man, he said, I am everything, and the woman is nowhere to be found? No. In the creation, they were both balanced. In the creation, they were both equal. That's what God is saying. The man and the woman are what? Are balanced. The man and the woman are what? Are equal mates. They were the same. They were created on the same day. Yes, the separation of Eve and bringing Eve might be a little bit late, but both of them were created on the same day. So they were equal. So the sense of some culture or some tradition that say that a woman is not better than a cow, then I have a problem with that. Personally, I have a problem with that. How can the culture say that a woman is nobody? Do you even understand what we are saying? If you as a man comes up today and say a woman is nobody, then that means that your mama is nobody. Because you need a woman to bring a man into the world, right? No, that is it. So we have to think. We have to look deep within us. We have to go to the mirror and look at ourselves and see our action and see our true self, what we are doing. The man and the woman are equal in creation. Yes, our responsibility is different. So our problem is that most of the time we tend to always confuse responsibility and equality. No, we cannot confuse that. The responsibility of the man is to be the breadwinner of the home. The responsibility of the man is to go to the jungle, to go to the forest and get a kill. Bring the animal home and let the woman prepare it and they eat and they enjoy themselves and they glorify the Creator. That is it. It's not hard. I don't know why we make it hard. In the world that we live now, they tell you, no. A woman said, okay, me too. I want to be like a man. I mean, you are trying to do what? To degrade yourself. Do you even know the meaning of a woman? To be a woman is a precious thing. It's a great thing. Right? No, but women say, no, I don't want to be a woman. I want to be a man. And some women come and say, no, I don't want to be a man. I want to be a woman. You see how sick the world is. How sick it is. Right, so let's continue. The Midrash Bereshit Rabbah in 17:2 suggests that a man who is not married, lives without good, and base it on a verse that says that it is not good for the man to be alone. A single man deprives himself of goodness. A man that is not married live without good. That's what the Midrash said. A man that is not married, meaning a woman also that is not married, a woman that is not married live without good. That is it. That's what the Torah said, and that is a fact. Any man, any woman that is not married, they are living without good. They are not good. Because you cannot give and you cannot receive. Which God said it is not good. You have to be able to give and be able to receive. That is good. Giving creates goodness. Without opportunity to give, we are lacking in our capacity to achieve and to also to produce good. Without you giving, without us having the opportunity to give, then we are lacking in our capacity to be a son of God. Remember, we have to emulate who? Emulate our Creator. We have to emulate who? We have to emulate our Father who is in heaven. Alright? And if we lack the opportunity to give, if we deny ourselves that opportunity because it is common in the 24th century, right? You say Canada will believe in immigration. Good. Then tomorrow, when everything is overwhelmed by immigrants, don't complain. Right? Do not complain, because that happened in history. The Egyptians said, oh, we are civilized. We are civilized people, are well educated, you know. We went to the university in Alexandria, you know, the best university in the world at that time. Nowhere in the world has a university, only in Alexandria in Egypt. The Greek, they come, the Aristotle, all of them, they come, the Socrates, all of them, they come to Alexandria to come and study. right? Oh, we're advanced, we're this and that. The Israelites were burning, they are producing, you know. They produce and produce and produce and produce. And the Egyptians just give back to 1 or maximum 2. While the Israelites were giving back to 10 to 20. Right? And it came to pass that the whole land was filled with them. And they jealous. Oh, the Israelites are too much. The Israelites are okay, why don't you burn? Well, because you think that you are what? You are civilized. What does civilization has to do with giving back? Has nothing to do with that. But because we want to look down on the other people, say, oh no, these are people, these are shepherds, you know, they take care of animals. And me, no, I'm a westernized, educated man, you know. I don't, no. I don't want to deal with these animal people that take care of animals. They stink. That is how exactly the Egyptian thought of the Israelites in their land. These stinking people. They stink. Don't mingle with them. Don't marry them. Don't touch them. Don't even go near their place. You know, they burn a lot. You know. When anything, if anything happened later in life, Canada shouldn't come and start crying. Or the Quebecois say, oh, no, it's too late, because other people are burning and you don't burn, and come and next time you come and say, oh, they take care of our land. Which land? So when you're supposed to do your job, you didn't do it, and now it's too late, you are crying. So this is what is taking place here. So we have to have the capacity to do what? To give. Because when you give, then you produce good. Okay? A few weeks ago, the Yom Kippur service that was recited across the globe harkened back to the depiction of the service performed by the high priest, the Kohen Gadol of Israel, in the Holy Temple when we still had the temple. That service was considered valid only if the Kohen Gadol was married. Can you imagine that? The service of a Kohen Gadol is considered valid by God only if that Kohen Gadol is married. If Kohen Gadol is not married, no. It can't even be a Kohen Gadol. That is it. It cannot be a Kohen Gadol without you having your own wife. But I'm sorry to say now that many people now, they tell you, don't marry, you know, and serve, and be, you know, and go serve your God. I don't know the God that they serve though. I'm sorry to say that. But the principle of the matter is what the Torah speaks, and what the Torah said, that every man must have his own wife, and every woman must have her own husband. That's the reason God is saying so. God is not stupid, and God will not come and change his word and say, no, oh, I think again, oh, at that time I made a mistake. Oh, you guys can change now. No, God is not a man. God is not a man that changed. The service of the Kohen Gadol in Israel in those days, when we still had the temple, if a Kohen Gadol is not married, his service is not of effect. No, it's not valid. Because a Kohen Gadol that cannot give, how can he show example? You have to show example to the world. God is a giver, and you are the Kohen Gadol, the head of Israel. You have to be a giver. And if you don't give, what example are you showing? You are showing no example. So much so that according to the Mishnah in the first chapter of Tractate Yoma, they even prepare a bride in waiting in case something should happen to the current wife of the Kohen Gadol. Why the emphasis on marriage as a critical precondition to the holiest service of the year? Why? For that same reason, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, has to be a giver if he is going to represent the entire Israelite before God. Giving is not just a good thing to do. It is very, very defined as goodness itself. When you give, you are doing good itself. That's the main reason why. The Kohen Gadol, when he's in the service, in the Mishnah says that a bride will be prepared for the Kohen Gadol in case anything happened to his current wife. In case, you see, I said this, understand that. In case something happened to the current wife of the Kohen Gadol, another wife is waiting. He's already there, standing by. He's like a spare tire, standing by. You see, this is extremely important. Why is God so keen to this? If you want to represent the entire Israelites before me, you have to be a giver. If you don't give, what example are you showing? You are showing selfishness. Because we have a lot of people now, they tell you, oh, I can't stand the noise of those children. I can't stand the noise of a child. It's better for me to be alone on my own. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. But if your mama thinks like that, you won't be born, no? Or if your papa thought the same way, you won't be alive, no? But you being selfish for yourself alone. You want to stay alone with your own self. And God said that is not right, that is not good. A man shall not be alone, a man shall be a giver. And when you give your significant others and she gives you back, that is balance. It's balance in creation. God created the darkness and God created the light. Actually, God created the light out of the darkness. Can you imagine that? From darkness, God created light. He speaks light and there was light. So we need to understand this principle that there is balance in everything. You can't just stay alone and say, you know what, I am on my own. An island, there is no island here. Every man must have his wife, and every woman must have her husband. When you give, then you are fulfilling the commandment of God. God as a giver. God is our Father, and we have to emulate our Father as a giver. Giving is not just a good thing to do. It is, by very definition, good itself. It is by every definition good itself. When we give, that is when we are performing the commandment of God. Balancing the creation. There is balance in creation. The creation is not bent this way or that way. Everything that God created is good and is very, very good. Parasha Bereshit. Shabbat Shalom.